In high school, I had a stalker. Here's the story. I'll try to keep it concise, but there's a lot of information for sure. I was 16 and we met on Facebook. He went to a school nearby and we decided to meet up for a movie. We had a great time together and ended up dating. First time he came to my parents' house, he had an ankle monitor on for house arrest and wouldn't tell anyone why. And since he was a minor, we couldn't find out. My parents obviously didn't allow us to hang out, so we hung out at his house or around town at the YMCA camp. I was rebellious and naive. Things started to get weird when I noticed his family was pretty odd. One day we were having sex in his bedroom and I saw his father looking through the blinds. I screamed and called him out and his dad ran off. Stalker guy told me that his dad was just into redheads and liked to watch us, so this wasn't the first time. I went to leave and his mom was doing crack in the kitchen, so I decided it was time to break up. This is when it got bad. He started crying and told me that he's in cancer treatment and that's why he needs me. He doesn't have long to live, blah blah blah. I believed him and told him we could be friends. This is when the stalking started. He switched schools to my high school but never went to class. He would just stand outside of my classroom looking inside until it was passing period. When I would leave class, he wouldn't address me. He would just follow about 10 to 15 feet behind me to my next period and stand outside the classroom again. I was too intimidated to say something to him. He was 6'4" and a heavy-set guy, so I just let it happen for weeks. It started to progress to where he would follow me home every day. He would get on the same bus as me, despite living across town, and walk 10 to 15 feet behind me all the way to my house. He would stand outside just staring up at the window until around the time my parents got home, and then he would leave. Finally, I told him to fuck off and leave me alone. I told him we could no longer be friends or acquaintances and to forget about me. However, that escalated things way further. I started getting about 150 calls a night. Half of them were him screaming death threats and in detail torture methods that he wanted to do to me, and the other half were him singing me love songs that he wrote on his guitar. Every time I blocked his number, he seemed to just magically get a new one and leave more messages on that. I woke up one day to see that overnight, he had left me one of those dancing, singing snowman on my porch. He had stabbed it in the head and the knife was still sticking out. He covered it in his liquid deodorant that I had previously mentioned liking the smell of, and I noticed there was a hole where the little song recording device was. When I pressed the hand, it was not the regular Frosty the Snowman song that played. It was his voice singing eerily, "I'm going to have you forever. I'm never going to let you be." I was done at this point and told my parents, who contacted the school. They suspended him, but he still waited at my bus stop every day and walked to my home with me. One day he ran at me like he was going to tackle me. When I tensed up for the impact, he stopped and hugged me. It wasn't a regular hug. It was like he was trying to crush me. I was 5'1" and about 90 pounds at the time, and he ended up cracking one of my ribs. I cried and he started crying too before running off. He left me a voicemail apologizing in song. This one night is the night I'll never forget, and it's the reason we got a restraining order, and my dad got a gun. I woke up one evening for no reason, just was fully awake. I got up to go to the kitchen to get a glass of water to relax, and in the reflection on my fridge, I saw movement in my backyard. I couldn't see well because it was so dark outside and so light inside, so I went to the back sliding glass door to get a better look. When I got closer, I was met with the silhouette of a 6'4" man standing just outside my door. Stalker guy was in my backyard, under my room at 3 a.m. He was just staring at me. I yelled and my parents got up, but he was gone by the time my dad went outside. There's a patio right outside my bedroom window that goes all the way to the ground, so it's possible he could have been on top of the patio looking directly into my bedroom window before. We got a restraining order granted shortly after that, and Stalker guy dropped out of school. I haven't seen him since in person, but every 6 months he makes a new Facebook and tries to friend request me. I just block it and report it every time. Scary stuff. Y'all ever heard of the myth that if you wake up in the middle of the night for no reason, there's likely someone looking at you? Well, maybe it's true. I don't know what he's doing now or where he went, but I don't care to know. Let's not meet ever again. Honestly, my story is not too bad, though I would still rather never meet this person again. I was stalked, but not because they were into me, because they were into my best friend Emma. Emma is gorgeous like to obscene level and has always had guys and girls fawning over her. She had a friend named Mike. Mike is who this story is about. I met Mike through Emma, and it was clear immediately that Mike was obsessed with her. She was actually into him too for a bit, but she wanted something not serious. Mike came on hard and heavy, so Emma distanced herself from him. When Emma and I graduated high school, we had plans to move in together, but due to a family situation, she only stayed at our place about 2 days a week and never on a set schedule. She also could not keep a job to save her life. Her family life was chaotic and made it to where she would have to leave at a moment's notice. Emma also had several places she crashed at. Family, friends, my family. It depended on her situation and any odd job she was working. She did a lot of odd jobs, babysitting, yard work, elder care, catering, etc. Nowhere stable, and often she wouldn't know what she was doing until that day. After Emma distanced herself from Mike, I started to realize he was at my work often, like 3 or so times a week. It would not have been too weird except my work was a department store for women and children. No men's clothes at all in this store. At first Mike would just come in, do a lap, and leave. It was weird, but I honestly just thought he was walking the mall. Lots of people do that, as my town has practically no entertainment. Then Mike started hanging out in my store and talking to me while I worked. Always talking about Emma. How is Emma? Why is she avoiding me? Those kind of questions. I was evasive, giving one-word answers, trying to tell him I needed to work. My manager scolded me for having friends hanging out while I was working. When I explained I did not want him there and that he wanted to know about my friend, my manager asked if I wanted him to talk to Mike. After that, Mike went back to doing a lap and leaving until my manager eventually stationed a big loss prevention guy at my register as a deterrent. It worked. No more Mike at work. I had won. Except I had not counted on Mike being extra creepy. He started showing up at my house. Couple of points. Mike did not have a car, and I lived in a different town than Mike. My family and my job about 20 minutes away by car. No public transportation in my town or in his. Uber did not exist in this area then either, and Mike didn't have a job as far as I knew. Mike knew where I lived because when I first moved in, we had a housewarming party and accidentally made the Facebook invite public. Mike started coming over at random times, sometimes early in the morning, sometimes in the evening, always asking to speak to Emma. I always told him Emma wasn't there, even if she was. For her safety, I advised her to not come to the house anymore and to tell Mike she wasn't interested, which she did, bluntly no more distancing, and blocked him. In this time, I moved in a new roommate, a coworker who, while also female, had a gun and a big boyfriend. Mike started coming by less frequently, and any time he did, I would tell him that he wasn't welcomed. Now, I know I should have called the cops, but there were 2 things preventing me. 1, I was from a not grand family who avoided cops for the most part. 2, my new roommate was a criminal law major, and she was already concerned about how that would appear for her career. Not great reasons, but for a 19 to 20-year-old, it was enough reasons for me to not mention it. Eventually, I stopped seeing Mike, but I would still occasionally spot him in places I was. The mall, my town's grocery store, and my dog's favorite park. I stopped posting on Facebook around this time, cause even though Mike was blocked, he was clearly still able to see my posts. I also got the creeping suspicion that he was coming by my house sometimes. My stuff on my porch would be moved. At night my motion sensor lights would go off and I kept finding Mike's cigarette butts. At least it was the same kind he smoked. My roommate had been there for about 4 months when one night she had her boyfriend over when someone started pounding on the door. When her boyfriend answered the door, he saw someone who looked like Mike running away. The next day, my roommate and her boyfriend went out of town for a concert. She gave me her gun even though I felt safe because she had gotten a dog that she was training as a guard dog. I started watching a cooking show in the living room and at some point I fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I woke up to my dog barking and the guard dog losing their minds, barking like mad at the window. There was a tall figure that bolted as soon as I sat up. I grabbed the gun, opened the door, and yelled, "I know that's you. I have a gun and I'm calling the cops." Which I didn't do. I just locked me and the dogs in the bathroom and called my dad, who luckily was not angry about being woken up in the middle of the night. He drove over and advised calling the cops and filing a restraining order, which we called the cops, but they said since nothing was broken and there was no evidence, there was nothing to be done about it. Luckily after this, I heard through the grapevine that about a week after the incident with the dogs, Mike's family sent him to live with a relative in a different state. He did come back a couple of years ago, but he was wise enough to only contact me once. When I got to tell him that Emma was not only happily married, but not at all interested in talking to him, I reminded him that I was willing to call the cops if he ever came near either of us again. This isn't as juicy as other posts here, but it's a good lesson in locking your car doors as soon as you're inside. I went to a pretty nice school that was unfortunately surrounded by a relatively sketchy neighborhood. This didn't bother me too much, especially since I didn't have a car for my first 2 years of school, and I stayed on campus for most things or just did without. But at 20, I got my very delayed license and a T-bone starter car that was luckily as functional as it was ugly. Among the many positive impacts this had on my young adult life was the ability to get midnight snacks that weren't from vending machines on my campus. The best spot for this was a 24-hour Walgreens just a mile off campus. While this place was usually fine, I would still park as close to the door as I could. But because the door was on the corner of the building, this just limited time in the parking lot and no visibility. One night in the wee hours, I returned to my car, parked in front of the Redbox machine with a group of 3 standing in front of it. 2 older, teenager maybe early 20 boys and a 40 to 50-year-old man. A nod to the older guy once I've gotten uncomfortably close. I'm texting my roommate before I depart, as a knock on my window makes me jump and drop my phone. I look up to see the older man from the red box standing there, staring at me. He's very clean, wearing a chef's uniform, and was there with what could easily have been his children, so while I was alarmed, I wasn't worried yet. I say, "Yes," loud enough for my voice to carry through the window. Instead of saying anything, the man just gestures in an eerily slow, roll down the window motion. Well, the driver's side of my vehicle had a huge dent from its T-bone incident, preventing the windows from rolling down. Not that I would, but it was a convenient and honest excuse. "I can't," I gestured down to the obvious crater. "What's up?" He says nothing, just continuing to motion without stopping and making extended eye contact. "Dude, I literally can't." Still no answer. At this point, my frustration shifts into unease, but just in case, I check my bag of goodies and feel for my wallet in case I've dropped something, and he's trying to return it. My eyes are averted for maybe 10 seconds before I hear clicking to my right. I look up to see the guy trying again to open the locked passenger side door. He's not struggling, just gently tugging as though he were invited in, and I may have accidentally left it locked. The patience and lack of outwardly threatening behavior only made this feel more methodical. When he made eye contact with me and saw my dumbstruck and rather horrified expression, he just grins at me. matter of fact and almost proud, like something bad might have happened if I didn't take precaution, and he wanted me to know that. No reassurance, no backing away or trying to say anything at all. Hell, I'm pretty sure his hand was still on the handle. I immediately move into reverse, only slow down a bit to be sure I'm not running anyone down. The two younger guys were just waiting on the curb, no longer messing with the red box, and the older man continued staring at me as I pulled out. Still smiling. He never said anything. Anyway, I don't know what he wanted or had planned. Maybe he just wanted spare change for the red box and just didn't feel like raising his voice enough to talk through a window. But either way, not cool. Lock your doors, kids, and don't linger in parking lots. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed today's narration of true creepy stalkers and strange encounters. All of the stories were found on Reddit under the subreddits Let's Not Meet and Creepy Encounters. The first story is called Woke Up to a Stalker Standing in My Backyard by Worried Possession 43. The second is called I Was Stalked Because of My Friend by UnderacheiverDreamer. And the third was No Dude, I'm Not Rolling Down My Window by Boy Mayor. Thanks for listening, and keep in mind that you should trust your gut and always keep your doors locked.